Play the intro.
Yep, that'd be nice.
Okay.
Operators are standing by.
Welcome to Chasing Prophecy Radio, where we discuss the unidentified, the unexplainable, paranormal, conspiracies, and much more. Starring your hosts and co-hosts, Jenny Nicasio, Sean Kelly, Trish Lowe, and Jason Sledgehammer Ryan Petro. Brought to you by UPRN Network. Now for your host, Jenny Nicasio.
Good evening and welcome to Chasing Prophecy on the UPRN Radio Network, FM 105.3 in New Orleans, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. Remember to like us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube. Hey guys, how are you tonight?
Good, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, not bad.
Smarty.
Hanging in there.
You're a jackass.
I'm looking forward to this tonight's guest.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
So everybody had a good week last week without me and Trish.
No. Well,
No, we missed you. Of course we missed you.
we missed. Yeah, we missed you guys, but Jason did a very good job, and it went along. It went smoothly.
Pab.
Oh, you're welcome.
You mean Sean had a good night too? You had a good night.
It was kind of. It started off in the Rocky Mountains.
Yes, it did. With the
Doesn't
intro.
it always start off in the Rocky Mountains? Guys?
Oh,
Seriously?
this was bad.
But he gets
did you hear
nervous.
Did you hear the opening, Jen?
Yes.
No, I didn't. So I go back and listen.
It's terrible. Look at her smile.
Oh,
Look
my
at her
God.
smile.
Why? What was it?
No, because I can relate. Because every time even when I do my own intros, I'm like, you think you have everything in your head. I could have note cards. I could have whatever. And then the music starts and you're like, oh no, I just forgot everything.
Well, you know what? It's harder. I mean, it'd be nice if I had someone do my intro for me, and so I can read my notes, because it's kind of hard doing everything at once, by yourself. I mean, it's kind of nerve wracking. But I remember the first time me and Sean remember our first night, Sean.
Yeah.
My voice was like, oh well.
Yeah.
I was like, look like
She sounded like an
10-year-old
opera singer.
going through my change of life. It was like I was like going through what do you call it, adolescent. It was horrible, but you get used to it. It gets fun, and sometimes it doesn't go right. So what are you gonna do, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You can't control
Nobody-
everything. Like, I'm sure the intro did not play when I should have been. We were just sitting there like 5 ding dongs, whatever, 4 ding dongs, 3 ding. I don't know. I can't.
But
Well, Sean
that's
gets
the
a little
great
bit
thing
of
about
stage
live.
fright.
Don't get stage fright, because you know what you're supposed
I
to
do.
do. Well, I used to go when I was in college and you had to do those stupid presentations and stuff. I would just picture everybody in their underpants.
But
Okay.
plus, that's the
That's a
difference
very
between
scary vision
like-
for this group.
That's a very scary vision there.
Well, what are you gonna do?
that's the difference between live and when people do podcasts or on the replays, they're able to edit that as many times as they want. But we're
Yeah,
real people, like we make mistakes. So
Yeah.
yeah. And right now I'm having a mistake because my lighting is so goofy that I look like, I don't know, glowing, like I have some kind of a. That's even worse. But I give up.
You have a white aura around you.
I know. Aliens too.
Alien.
Speaking of white auras, I mean, we have our guest tonight. Well, let me just put it this way. Do you guys believe in light energy healing, anything like
Sure
that?
do. Mhm.
absolutely.
Quantum healing. I don't know if this is the topic
Oh.
we should discuss, because I think we all need a little bit right now.
Yeah,
What were
we
you going
do.
to say, Tricia? You gonna
Oh
say
no,
something?
no, I say I
Well, we
agree.
got- we got
I
Sean
mean, I
the
think we should
healer.
discuss it, but I absolutely agree with the concept
Well,
of light
there-
healing.
Well, isn't that the same thing as star magic healing? Well, we're going to find out tonight, because our guest, Jerry Sargeant, I hope I'm not screwing up his name as usual. He's a powerful healer. He's a motivational speaker, international bestseller, author, renowned, transforming thousands of people's lives, emotionally, physically, spiritual lives, probably even beyond that. He's remarkable. His abilities have helped people with their energy. He calls it a holographic blueprint. We're going to find out about Jerry's remarkable story because it is one. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on and let him tell us in his own words. Let's see if I can pull him up on here because this thing is not working right, my loves. Okay, let's bring Jerry. Welcome to Chasing Prophecy, Jerry.
Hey,
You have a
Jerry, what's
wonderful
up?
Hello,
bio.
Jerry.
How you
Well,
doing, guys? Thanks for having me.
well, go ahead and tell us about your story. And I might have screwed it up because, like, it's my, I was off for a week and I kind of forget where I'm at. My brain isn't wired right tonight. And we can't blame it on the full moon. So, Jerry, go ahead and tell us about yourself. Go ahead. You
Yeah,
still there?
I couldn't hear you then.
Feel free. Go ahead.
So what you just said then didn't come through my end for some reason.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
You have like a little bit of a hologram echo going on there too. I was just wanting you to tell me about yourself and how you got started in this. Did you get that?
Yeah, got you loud and clear. Yeah,
Good.
so first up, thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, I mean, right now, I mean, we're traveling the world and we're training people with this extraterrestrial light healing technology that we call star magic healing, and sharing the message of empowerment and love and all this stuff. But my life didn't used to be like this. I mean, I had a completely different life. I mean, I used to be involved in like a high profile criminal organization, smuggling drugs, guns, different commodities, high level bank fraud, all of this sort of stuff. And like my whole life kind of flipped around after a few kind of otherworldly crazy events, which, I never believed in anything beyond this physical world. When I was a kid, I didn't go to church, none of this sort of stuff. I was in, drug addict, alcoholic, sort of went off the rails like loads of kids. And then I ended up moving to a place called Tenerife in the Canary Islands when I was about 17, 18 years old. And that's where I got involved in like all of this kind of like criminal stuff. And I was working for, these people who earned a lot of money, doing things that weren't very good. But my ego was in full control. I loved, just earning money, watches, cars, all of that sort of stuff, just all that material stuff that you think you need when you're a kid, And then I met my wife-to-be, our first daughter, Alea, was born. And we ended up moving back to England. I set up a property business, trying to turn my life around. Things were going really, really well. And then the property market went completely sort of the other way, and we lost loads of money. We got kicked out of our home, owed the bank loads of money. And that's when everything kind of really started for me, because I was kind of, out of control really in terms of my ego and the material world. And what happened is we moved to this rented property. I went back to selling drugs, all of this sort of stuff. And I was watching TV one night, and my ex-missus, she came downstairs and she said, Jerry, every time I close my eyes, I see all these dark images and hear all these dark voices, and it feels like something's trying to take me away. And she said, every time I'm pushing the pushchair down the road in the morning, it's like something's trying to make me push the pushchair into the road in front of the cars. And I looked at her and I thought, that sounds really weird. I said, but okay, what do you want to do about it? So she phoned a friend that was a priest, and this priest came around the house and she's putting like crosses up and she's dousing the house and all this stuff. And I was sat there thinking like, this is something like out of the poltergeist or something. This is like really weird. So anyway, she calmed Laura down. Laura went to bed. And the next day I went to see my friend. And I said, listen, this really weird thing happened in our house last night. Like, what do you make of it? And I told him the story. And he told me to give this lady a call. So I phoned up the lady and she didn't answer the telephone. She called me back a little while later. And, I told her the story and she said, where do you live? And I said, 316 Richmond Road. And that's the only bit of the address that I gave her. And she said, hold on a minute. And the phone went quiet and I'm waiting. And she said, have you been knocking some walls down in the house? And I said, no. I said, we rent the property. We've just moved in, but the previous owner has clearly built an extension. And she said, yeah, you got an angry old man in the house. And I was like, what do you mean an angry old man? I said, okay, well, let's just pretend there is an angry old man. What are you going to do about it? She said, oh, I'll get rid of him for you. I thought, brilliant. I said, when can you come round? She said, oh, I don't need to do that. I can do it from here. And like, she lived the other side of the UK. And I just thought to myself, this is just getting weirder and weirder. So I ended the conversation, put the phone down. I went home and I spoke to my missus and I said, listen, I know I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I spoke to this lady about what happened last night. And she reckons there's an angry old man in the house. And my ex-missus turned around to me and she said, Jerry, I know, I've seen him. So I thought, right, you're telling me you've seen this angry old man, this lady that we've never met before, that you've never ever spoken to. She's telling me there's an angry old man. I thought there must be some kind of truth to it. So I phoned the lady back up. I said, I don't know what you do, but I've got to come and see you. Like, I'm one of those people that, like, when you get stuck, I'm like a dog with a bone. If I find something out, I've got to go and find everything out about it. So I phoned the lady, went back and saw her, and she had like a past life regression business. And she worked for Scotland Yard in the psychic division. And she regressed me into my first past life. And it was amazing. And I got hooked. And I went to see her like 2 or 3 times a week for years. She taught me how to remote view, how to bring my light out of my body and travel, how to communicate telepathically, all this sort of stuff. And then around the same sort of time as this happening, me meeting this lady, I'm in Romania again with Laura, ex-wife, our son Josh was born by then, 2 children. And we're on the way back from a place called Piatra Neamț to Bucharest Airport. I'm in a taxi, asleep, and there's a loud crash and a bang. And I wake up, the taxi's swaying from side to side. And there's glass and there's wind. And I thought to myself, man, we're in a bad accident. We're either going to hit the oncoming traffic or the car's going to flip. And then all of a sudden we came to a stop. And there's no other cars on the road. I looked at Laura, the taxi driver, and he looked petrified. I've looked in the back. Laura's there with Josh in her arms. Their mouths are full of glass. Our daughter's underneath the driver's seat. And I've looked in front of me and there's a hole in the windscreen and there's blood dripping down my face, but I'm not bleeding. So I thought, this is really weird. There's no other cars on the road. What's going on? So I've got out of the car. I've looked about 30 meters back up the road and there were 2 ladies lying on the side of the road. I looked about another maybe 100 meters or so back up the road and there was what looked like a dead body. And what had happened is 3 ladies were crossing the road in the morning. The first one got hit clean on. She came through the windscreen, smashed me in the face, got flipped over the car and died. Second one had her ankles cut off, and the third one was physically okay. So I've checked on Laura and the kids, walked up past the 2 ladies, the one with her ankles cut off, the other one was screaming, and a guy had come out from a nearby factory. And he was on the phone, thought he must have called the emergency services. You know, what can I do? Like, her ankles were on the floor. So I walked past those ladies. I was fixated on what looked like a dead body. I got closer and closer. I got within about 10 meters and I saw this like energy, you know, and which I now know was the lady's soul. And I'm shaking my head.
Wow.
Get out of my head. Like, I didn't want to see it.
That is crazy.
And I walked closer and closer to the body and the energy just kind of fizzled into the distance. And by that time, I'm looking down at the lady and her legs are wrapped up over her head. She's completely mangled. And I looked up to the heavens and I remember saying, thank you. It was like someone had taken an old car to the scrap heap. Like, whatever this energy was that was inside of the body, it didn't have any use for it anymore. It had just gone on its merry way. And I kind of saw what happened, you know, this connection between life and death, and that there's something beyond this physical form controlling the body. And it felt like I wanted a whiskey and a cigarette at the time. I don't smoke cigarettes. So I don't smoke cigarettes. It felt like a time to celebrate, you know? So that happened. And then a few months later, Laura had a headache. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, I can take this out of your head. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. I walked over to her. She's lying on the bed and I saw the headache. It was green. So I reached in her head and grabbed it out. And she got off the bed like she didn't have a headache. And I thought, that's a bit weird. But like, I just, you know, carried on doing what I was doing. And then the next thing that happened, a couple of my mates and I, we're looking into 2012 and the end of the Mayan calendar. And we go to this talk in a place called Basingstoke outside of London. And we're sat in this old bungalow. There's this guy, he's giving a talk. And I asked him a question, and it was a little bit contradictory. And it obviously like pissed him off a little bit. But I wasn't trying to do that. But he stopped and he looked at me, and his face disappeared. And there was like a green lizard looking at me. So I'm thinking, what the heck's going on, man? You know? And on the outside, I'm trying to look cool as a cucumber. On the inside, I'm thinking, man, this is nuts, you know? And he held my face, my kind of like gaze for it was probably like 4 or 5 seconds, but it seemed like an eternity.
Yeah.
And then his face kind of just turned back to a human again. And then we stayed for the rest of the night, went home, and I'm in the shower. And then I see a picture of this old guy in my head. And again, I'm shaking my head, trying to get it out of my head, and he won't go. And he said, my name's James. Well, I said, well, who are you? He said, well, I'm one of your guides. He said, I'm here to help you because that guy that you met earlier, he was trying to psychically attack you and your friends. So anyway, I got out of the shower, got dressed, went downstairs, and had a chat with this guy called James for ages, an hour or so, a full-blown conversation on the sofa. And he was like the first kind of like spirit guide that I'd met. Then shortly after this, we moved to New Zealand. And a friend of mine in England has a car accident. And she's in Frenchay Hospital in Bristol. And she's properly smashed up. Like the gear stick's gone through her leg, her ribs are broke, her hips are broke, all this stuff. And the doctors had said to her, you're probably never going to walk again. You know, you'll be in hospital for at least a year. And her partner phoned up and asked if I could help. And I was like, yeah, I'm in New Zealand. How am I supposed to help her? But my intuition said, go and get some crystals, lie on the bed and put them on your chakras and just lie down. So I went and got the crystals, lay on the bed. And then all of a sudden I'm inside this lady's hospital room and all this light is pouring out of my hands. And I kind of knew what to do. I started putting her body back together. I did this every day for a couple of weeks. And she walked out of hospital with the use of a Zimmer frame in about 12 weeks. And the doctors couldn't believe it. And I was thinking to myself, did I do something? Didn't I? Is this just my like crazy imagination? But she came out of hospital, she phoned me up and she said, Jerry, I woke up one night, I looked at the side of my bed and said, what are you doing here? And she saw me in a hospital room exactly where I'd imagined myself. And I was like, this is crazy, like this imagination stuff. There's more to this than, you know, what I was taught imagination was at school. Like it's something actually happening in the quantum field somewhere in another time and space. So this happened. And then I met this old guy called Michael, and he taught me how to meditate. And I'd never meditated before. And he had a pyramid in his garden. So I used to go around the house every day and sit in this pyramid. I had some crazy experiences, but I'll tell you about 2 of them because they're really important. Like the first one, I was sat there in this meditation and my feet turned to balls of fire and there's flames spinning on my feet. And I looked down thinking, like, when are they going to start burning? And then Jesus appeared before me and he said, Jerry, you can walk anywhere you want to go in this world, just don't be scared. So I'm like, okay. And then he turned and there were some steps appeared in the garden. So he's walked up the steps. I followed him up the steps through this door and we're in the Last Supper. And we're all sat around the table. I was Matthew. There was other kind of like people there. There was food. And I've looked out the window and there was a massive spaceship. And they were showing me that like aliens have been around for like a long, long time. So this happened. I've come out the place, back down the steps, back into my body, back into the meditation. And then about 2 weeks later, a space pod, only way I can describe it, lands in the garden. I'm meditating with my eyes open, and there's a blue being inside of it. So I brought my light out of my body, went and got inside this spacecraft, and we flew through a tunnel for about 4 or 5 seconds, came out the other side, and we're above beach. There was water. And I got out of the spacecraft, walked up the beach, and there was about 200 of these blue beings. And when I went to meet them, they just gave me a hug, and I just melted. There was so much love, and it was just love like I'd never felt before. Like it was just amazing. And I knew that I was on Alpha Centauri. I don't know how I knew that. I'd never heard of it. I knew these beings were Lyran beings, and I just felt like I was home. And what happened after they hugged me, they kind of cleared away, and I walked up the beach a bit further, followed one of them through the jungle, and we went to this building that was made of light, and went inside of it, and there was this really old blue being, like ancient, like meeting an elder or something. And I knelt down on the floor, and all of this orange light started pouring into my head, and it was full of geometry and code and all of this sort of stuff. And it lasted for a little while. I don't know how long, because I was kind of like, I don't know, in a different space. And then it suddenly stopped. And then 2 of them like picked me up underneath my arms and frog marched me back to the space pod. So they stuck me back inside, flew back through the tunnel. I got out back into my meditation. And then nothing else happened for like 2 years. And I was waking up every day thinking, come on, man, what's next? Like, you know, what on the next piece of the puzzle? And nothing happened. And then one day I woke up and I said to Laura and the kids, like, we've got to go back to England. I said, I don't know why, we've got to leave New Zealand and go home. And we'd set up a health and fitness center, a gymnasium, like things were going really well. And they said to me, like, you know, we're not going back, Dad, this is crazy. Anyway, I pestered them for a few weeks. And in the end, we packed up our suitcases and put a manager in charge of this gym that we'd started and flew back to England. And then I'm out running one morning and I see these fairies flying around a tree. And I stop and I'm looking at the fairies, and this angel comes down and says, my name's Archangel Gabriel. And he said, you've got to write a book. I said, okay, what's the book called? He said, Into the Light. It's about your life story. So I ran home, I opened up my laptop and I started writing. And this book I wrote it in like 4 weeks. I published it. Then as soon as I published it, everything started going crazy. I started seeing all of this geometry in the empty space. And it was the same geometry that I saw that I got in the orange download on Alpha Centauri. So I'm saying to my guys, like, what am I supposed to do with it? They said, you need to meditate more. So my son Josh and I, we were getting up at 5 o'clock every morning, and we were going into these meditations for a couple of hours. And we were going into these like classrooms that were underneath the pyramids in Egypt. And they were like these little old wooden desks you get like when you're a kid at school. And I'd look left and I'd look right, and there was loads of other human beings in there, like, all sat there ready for a lesson. And this guy was getting these scrolls out, and on the scrolls there were codes. And it was the same codes in the empty space, the same codes that I got on Alpha Centauri. And Josh and I went every day for 2 hours for 9 months. And they showed us how to heal people using these codes. So after about 9 months, people started coming into my life that needed healing. And I was like, let me just see if this stuff works. So I'm trying it and it was working. And I kept trying it and it kept working. So I thought, you know, maybe I can actually turn this into a business, you know, and maybe earn money like properly for the first time in my life. So what I did is I went to this like local mind, body, spirit festival. And I got these little cards that said energy healing. I took my book Into the Light, and I had a little stand. And I put this form down and said to people, listen, I'm giving away 3 free energy healing sessions at the end of the weekend. Put your name down. So about 70 or 80 people put their name down. And I phoned every single one of them and told them that they'd won just so I could practice. So I had like 70 or 80 people to practice on. I practiced on them for a few weeks and got really good results. So I phoned them up and I said, listen, will you give me a testimonial? So I was going around England just collecting testimonials with my video camera. So I did that and then set the website up, and then Star Magic was born. And then this was in 2016. Then as soon as I did that, the blue being that took me to Alpha Centauri came to see me again. I was in Cheltenham. I was like sat on a mountain overlooking the town, and the whole town disappeared. He just appears next to me, and he showed me all of these lights spread around the Christ consciousness grid of the planet. And I said, what are they? And he said, they're healing centers. He said, you've got to build them. I said, well, if I build them, who's going to run them? He said, you need to train people first. So just like when I was told to write the book Into the Light, I ran home and designed this training program. And I put it up online in sort of like October, November that year in 2016. And we did the first training in February 2017. And people turned up from America, from Canada, from Egypt, from Europe, from all over the world. And I was like, why are you guys here to see me? It was just really surreal and weird. And then the being told me to write a book called Healing Light Frequencies, the Transformative Power of Star Magic. So I wrote that book as well. And then since then, we've trained, I don't know, thousands of people in over 40 countries. And we're in the process of building our first healing center in Transylvania and Romania. We've got land in the UK, land in Madeira, and it's all just happening. And I don't know how it's happening because I've just been listening to what this blue being told me from another planet. But, you know, now I'm just kind of speaking to people like you and training people, and it's a whole different world, you know, and I'm just really, really grateful to be on this journey and helping people transform their lives, you know.
Wow. That is interesting, dude.
That's a story.
So just out of curiosity, just real quick, it's been boggling my mind. Whatever happened to the taxi driver? I'm just curious.
He actually got in a lot of trouble because apparently he was speeding. And I mean, when I got out of the taxi, The front of the car was up against the windscreen. Like, you know, if like you hit a cow or like a what, you know, big heavy animal. I couldn't believe how much damage was there. And what happened is when we missed our flight, and when we went to the police station, like the lady that was there that was screaming with the lady that had her ankles cut off, she was there. So like it was a real crazy situation. We gave him money.
That was crazy.
With the funeral, and went through these interviews, and when I came out at the police station, there was all cameras there wanting to interview me about it for like national TV. I thought it was just really weird, you know, like, you know, yeah, it's a strange situation. But yeah, he got in a lot of trouble. He lost his license, all this sort of stuff. Yeah.
Did your kids do all right with that? They weren't like traumatized or anything?
Nah, they were pretty cool. That, you know, I mean, my kids have been through a lot. You know, like I've had a mad life, and I've sort of dragged them from pillar to post, and they've been on a bit of a ride with me. So like most things don't really faze them. You know, they're pretty cool things. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. I was just curious. I just had to ask. That's all.
Nah, you know what? Like, I've told this story so many times. You're the first person to ask that question. You know, but yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. What happened to the taxi driver?
Whenever you started with seeing the blue light or the blue image dude or whatever, at your very first, what was your reaction? I mean, literally, what was your reaction? Did you really, like, did you think it could have been something evil, maybe? Just asking.
You know what? It just felt so right. Like,
Okay.
I didn't really think about it, you know? I just kind of, I saw it and I was like, man, I've got to get in that spacecraft. Like, you know, like, this might be the only chance I'm ever going to get in one. So I kind of like brought my light out of my body, and which I'd been trained to do, and just went and got inside of it. And when I got inside of it, it was like just a cockpit that was big enough for two people, and the controls were just lights. And somehow, like the being, it was controlling it with its thoughts. And what it did, it got my consciousness, and it sent my consciousness to where we were going to. And then somehow the craft and the body went and got sucked through and caught up with it. It was really weird, yeah. Yeah.
I find it interesting, you know, all the places that you mentioned, and you said this was around 2016.
No, we started the business in 2016. Like the car crash was 2006. When I came face to face with that reptilian, it was 2005. The thing with with my wife and meeting the lady was 2004. We moved to New Zealand in 2009. Like, it was a whole series of things from like 2004 all the way through to 2016. Like, I kept resisting all this stuff. You know, I was happy smuggling drugs and doing that sort of stuff, and just earning loads of money. I didn't want to go down this road. I fought tooth and nail for ages, you know.
Well, I think it's interesting, all the locations that you've mentioned, because anyone I've ever met that has had, you know, a crazy life prior to something very traumatic and eye-opening happening, and all of us seem to go down the same path. It was 2017, 18, myself, quite a few people in the same community wanted to open up a gym and move to New Zealand. And then all of a sudden we wanted to go to England. And then we wanted to, you know, this fall, I hope to go to Romania, and for different reasons. And so I'm wondering if there's like a specific, I mean, I'm sure we're all collectively supposed to, or I guess meant to, help in this healing path, as far as, and just those so happen to be maybe different locations at different time periods, do you think, that need help the most? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a real good question. You know, like what I feel personally myself is that like we are like computer code, and like there's energy and code streaming through us like 24/7, 365.
Oh, absolutely.
And like if I'm walking down the road and you guys walk past me and we all walk past each other, we're just streaming data to each other. That goes for everyone that's in the road. And we're also streaming code down into the lands, and we're also uploading codes from the land. So everywhere we go around the world, we're always like distributing and receiving data. So it's just like this huge, like intergalactic, cosmic, earthly, like highway of data and information that we're all streaming. And I feel that, you know, when we get drawn to certain places, we're going there because we have to drop some codes off. We've got to pick some codes up, or there's something happening beyond the physical form that most of us are unaware of. But on a level of light and information, we're like playing our roles perfectly, you know?
This is interesting.
Yeah.
This is
Jerry, where are you where are you headed with this star magic? Where are you headed? Like, where in your path or
Where my
journey?
head is.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, as I was explaining to the guys, I think you might have missed it, Jen, but we're
Yeah.
building healing centers at the moment. So like we've got some
So you're
land
gonna
in Romania. Yeah, we've got some amazing architects that we're working with, and we're building these like, it's like this real ancient, like extraterrestrial kind of technology that we're creating in human form. So the buildings themselves are all built off sacred geometry, this like crystalline frequency. And the first healing center that we're building is constructed around the star constellation of Ophiuchus, which is the 13th constellation in our zodiac. A lot of people think it's 12, but it's 13. And we're going to build another 12 healing centers. So we're looking for 12 bits of land. We've got 3 so far. We've got England, Madeira in Portugal, and Transylvania in Romania. And we're looking for land at the moment to build the other ones. And yeah, the first one we're constructing is number 13, which is the number of the divine goddess. And it just feels so right to do it in Romania. I mean, my whole journey started in Romania. Everything keeps drawing me back to Romania. And actually, the energy in Romania is so powerful.
I can
So
imagine.
we're building this thing. It's on a grid point as well. So yeah, it's pretty special. So like in answer to your question, what we want to do is build these 13 healing centers spread around the grids to anchor these off-planet frequencies in a real powerful, safe way. So we can bring them like fluidly down to Earth. Because the thing is, a lot of people like come into contact with these energies and it blows their brains. You know, some people end up in psychiatric wards. Some people have a meltdown. They can't take it. You know, it affects people in different ways. Some people run with it, mind. But, you know, if we can anchor them by creating some really powerful grids, we can wake humanity up a lot faster. So this is our plan.
I don't know if I missed anything about how, like, what have you healed? Like, how, who have you healed, or what types of diseases can you heal, or can you do it remotely? Do you have to be right there?
Oh, you missed a lot.
I missed a lot.
I mean, about 3 years ago, I got arrested for healing people with cancer. You know, all of our work's done remotely.
So do you do it remotely? Okay, so like,
Yeah.
do you do in
How
America?
can they
Jenny
arrest
needs
you
some
for
healing.
that?
Well,
How can they arrest
No, I
you for
don't want anything
remotely healing someone?
Yeah.
They've got an act called the Cancer Act, 1939. And
Huh.
apparently you're not allowed to use the words healing in the same sentence as cancer. Or
Oh.
there's a few words that you can't use. And what happened is I was working on this lady in India. She had tumors and fibroids and different things. I did 3 healing sessions on her and it all disappeared. So she made a video with her doctor's notes and all this sort of stuff. I stuck it on YouTube, and then boom, they came and arrested me. And I went through a 2-year
My
court
goodness,
battle.
they arrested you for that.
Yeah.
I believe it. I believe it. You know, it's the same. I was telling my co-host about like me having Lyme disease in the U.S. It's not recognized, and they people lose their license for even the mention of healing it here. So
Well, healthy people don't make money, do they?
No.
You know, so
No,
they
we
need
get back to,
to-
yeah. I think a lot of things are going to change in the near future with that. So what is one of your hardest, like, how do you stay disciplined to do what you have to do and have a family or take care of people around you? How do you stay focused?
I'm like a soldier, man. Like I wake up every day at like 5 o'clock, and you know I'm on it. You know, I mean right now it's like 2:44 in the morning in England, and you know tomorrow in several hours we've got people coming from all over the world to drink ayahuasca. So we're running a 5-day retreat. You know, all day I've been traveling to get here, setting up the venue. Like every morning, like you know exercise, gym, qigong, breath work, ice cold showers. I'm focused on just completely, being 100,000,000% focused on this mission. Just it's all I live, breathe, and eat this stuff. Like being disciplined for me, I find it really easy. A lot of people like they drift in life. I wake up every morning, I'm just on this. There's nothing else that I want to do. I just want to help the world become a better place.
Maybe you should bottle that. Now, when you do you have a certain diet that you follow to keep healthy so that you can heal other people? I mean, do you think
Well,
your body needs to be clean? The food that you eat needs to be clean?
yeah, you know what? It's a real good question. I mean, I used to eat loads of meat and all this sort of stuff. I mean, I used to have a terrible diet. I remember years ago, I used to eat McDonald's and Burger King and all this sort of stuff. And then I went through this kind of transitionary period. So I started going to Burger King and taking the bread off of my burgers and thinking it was healthier just to eat the meat and the salad. And then I stopped eating Burger King and went to McDonald's and then just started eating chicken nuggets. And slowly over years, you sort of you start to understand more about nutrition. And then I went vegan in 2013, and I did that for 6 years. That was the worst thing that I ever did. For the first 2 years, it was great. Because I go to the gym all the time. I was pumping, I was flying with energy, and then my body started to crumble. My muscles started to deteriorate. I started to have less energy. So I was I introduced a bit of chicken back into my diet, and then some eggs, and then some fish. And so now what I do is I'm predominantly plant-based, 90-95%, but I will eat eggs, fish, chicken when my body wants it. So I might have chicken every day for a week, and then I might not eat it for 3 months. So it just depends.
That's how I am.
I just say, listen to your body, man. I met a guy in the Conscious Life Expo in LA a couple of years back, and he was, I don't know, 40, 50 years old. And every time he bumped into something with his elbow or his shoulder, his bones would crack. Where he'd been vegan for so many years. And I said, why don't you start eating meat again? He said, well, I've stuck the vegan label on me. He said, I can't go back. And I think this happens to some people, and at one point I was like that a little bit. I was like, I've told everyone I'm vegan, I can't go back now, but my body was deteriorating so much I just had to, madness to carry on going.
And there's a thing about, so I respect people's choices either way, but as far as I have communicated with, plants are rooted. They're connected to this directly to the source. So if people think that plants aren't hurt just as much as animals when you eat them, I have another thing
Yeah, they have a defense mechanism too, that if you eat them, they put off some kind of toxin and you eat it, you get sick. I can't eat plants.
I've said that too. I've said, a lot of things as far as plant protein goes and the earth goes, eventually, due to our ways of farming, just like animals don't have that capability of defense, much like plants. Plants, if they wanted to, can completely flip the script on people and start becoming toxic as a defense mechanism.
And most of them
based on the way based on over harvesting and things like that. And it's been proven by science. So I'm the same way. I think you have to have a good balance of both, meat and plant and everything else. But
I think fasting's really important as well. I eat for 6 hours a day from 12 to 6 and then don't eat from 6 to night.
Fasting is wonderful.
So many amazing things happen in the body, when you're fasting.
Your brain literally starts healing itself after so many hours of fasting.
Yeah, I mean, on 18 hours, you spike growth hormone levels, cellular regeneration, stem cell growth. When you get,
it's tough after 24. Going after 24 to 48 hours, 72 hours.
Absolutely.
I don't think I could fast that.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, I couldn't.
You could.
No.
You just maintain.
Do you find, Jerry, that your body naturally, when I start getting sick and run down, I automatically start eating certain things or fasting or whatever. It's like, I guess, Jenny, you were asking, how do you know what diets? It's like something tells me, my guides, whatever, tell me what do you do? Like, you cannot eat that. You cannot drink that. You have to do this. You have to, do you get that as well, Jerry?
Well, like I don't really get like
To heal
sick.
yourself, I guess.
Yeah, I don't really ever really get ill, but like sometimes I feel myself like starting to deplete, and I feel it in my throat. So like sometimes my voice goes quiet if and I know that my energy levels have gone down. It's just how I kind of like tune in like that. So all I do is I go and rest, I go and sleep, I'll get out into nature, I leave my phones at home and go and hug some trees for a few hours and walk barefooted in the forest, you know. But the other thing that I do as well is drink my own urine every day. You know, urine therapy, like it's the only liquid on the
Really?
planet that's got all of the information on your own body. All the
Wait
good
a minute.
stuff.
Hold on a second.
Hold
Did
on
you
a
say
second there, Drew.
hold on. Stop the car. Did you say you drink urine every day? Is that what I
Yeah,
heard?
man.
Oh my God.
Brother, it's amazing, man. Like it's got so much goodness in it. Yeah.
So if you eat a lot of fruit, is it at least kind of fruity?
You know what? Like I remember the first time that I went to drink it. Right, I was stood in the mirror looking at it, staring at it. I was like, man, I can't do this. And I ended up drinking it, and I just started laughing because it tasted okay. Like I was expecting it to taste nasty.
Did you ever try somebody else's?
Never, I've not done that. No,
Okay.
nah, man.
Oh,
Nah.
if you're
I was just
stranded in the
curious.
desert, they say to drink your own urine if you can't. if
To
you
an
don't have any
extent in
water.
that case, because you could be overly dehydrated. But
That's
it's the
crazy.
same concept as animals that I was just Goats of Anarchy, the goat rescue. They're talking about how the importance of animals that chew their cud, because they get so many nutrients from literally regurgitating their food and eating it again. That's the whole purpose of that. So it's the same concept.
Yeah, I mean, like in your urine, you've got like creatines, vitamins, minerals, like all of the good stuff comes out there that your body just it can't consume it all, so it releases it. All of the rubbish comes out the other side, you know. And if you
What
collect
about
it in the
the?
morning,
What about with being diet? There's a lot of diabetics out there that if their stuff gets out of control, they literally pee crystals. I'm sure that can't be good
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
you know what? I don't know about that, brother. Yeah. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you were speaking of the man that the one that tried to attempt a psychic attack, and I run across this so many times in my life as well. The one that you saw the past the hologram of the lizard faced man. Do you ever, we're always taught how to protect ourselves and how to deflect against things like that. And myself recently, I've had a lot of psychic attacks from a lot of beings like that, and I'm hardly ever get sick, but obviously I have recently. But do you get that a lot? Do you run into that? Almost like trying to stop your mission in this life, your path.
Yeah, I mean, like we're in a spiritual war. We've been in a spiritual war for billions of years, and there's a war over the right passage of your soul. You know, on planet, off planet, the war is continuing. I remember I was in Turkey 4 years ago, and I was in the healing center. Like I went over there for several days just to work on their patients and stuff. And I'm working on this lady. She's lying down on a healing bed, and this Baphomet comes in behind me, like the being with the goat with the horns and all that. And it started pumping fire through my back. And I caught the fire when it got to my elbows, and I pushed it back out my body, got the being out of the space, continued my healing. And then that night, I went down the gym. I've walked into the gym, and I've set this little circuit up. And I'm just about to do my circuit, and this big, like, steroid guy's come over, and he started lifting my weights and stuff up. And I said, "What are you doing, mate?" Like I said, "I've just set this circuit up." Anyway, like we had a sort of a bit of a confrontation in the gym, and then he went and I did my circuit. The next night when I went into the gym, I saw that guy, and he came over to me. He was like, "Hey, mate, how you doing?" He was so friendly, and I knew the night before like something had taken him over him to try and like and that. Anyway, that night when I'm in the gym, I finish the gym, I go to the sauna, and I'm sat in the sauna on my own, and there's like, the wooden door with a little glass window, and I look through the window, and there's 3 beings there. One's got like a Tyrannosaurus Rex head, and there were 2 like lizard type beings, and they're staring at me. I'm thinking, what is going on, man? This is nuts. So anyway, like they went, I get out the sauna, I go and lie down, and I'm sort of like in this sort of like dreamy state, because it was like hot from the sauna and all this sort of stuff. And I started getting like flashbacks about my birth and all this sort of stuff. And I was fostered and adopted as a kid. And when I was like 23, 24, I found my real mum. And I knew that I had to go and contact her and ask her a bit more about my birth. So I got out of the gym, I phoned her up, and I said, listen, what happened when I was born? So she told me this story that when she went into this home to give birth to me, she didn't tell her parents and all this sort of stuff. She told them she was going to college. So she went away like for 9 months, gave birth, came back pretending she was at college. Anyway, she went into this kind of home, and she went into labor, and they left her in this room just screaming for 13 hours. Then when it was time for me to be born, these 2 men in black masks, they walked into the room with another lady in a black mask. They got a massive pair of scissors. They started cutting her vagina. They ripped me out, stuck me in a room, and never let us have contact with each other. And anyway, so they came back in like several hours later after she was bleeding and screaming. They stitched her back up without any medication. So they traumatized her purposely when she was giving birth, so that they could kind of like mind control me later on. So she was explaining to me that I had like my father had German and Jewish, like all of these kind of strange DNA strands. And anyway, so I started getting this information from her. Now, the next night, I'm in a restaurant, and this being comes through the wall and tries to stab me in my kidney. So I brought my light out of my body. I've got this like bow and arrow made of light, and I'm having this battle with this being inside this restaurant whilst I'm eating food with this other person that I was with. And then that day, my daughter, she got dragged off her horse in England, and the reptilian is eating her womb. So so that happened, and then another being attacked my son in his sleep, like is strangling him. So we had this kind of attack because I started getting all of this information, and then everything started coming back to me. And I realized that when I was like 2 months old with my first foster parent, they raped me. And then my first adoptive mum, she used to hit me with a wooden ruler. My first school teacher, she pulled my pants down in the classroom and used to beat me. So I had all this like trauma when I was younger. So they could kind of like, what they do is they split the cranium in the base of people's spines by giving them Kundalini, triggering the Kundalini through like anal sex and that sort of thing when kids are small. And they do that to break the brainstem, and then they can like mind control them from a distance as they grow up. And this is what they did to me. So I started getting all of this information come through, and I had an onslaught for about 2 years then of all these beings that trying to attack me left, right, and center, and it's pretty crazy. But one of the things that we deal with in our trainings is what we call shadow parasites. So if you go into the jungle and you look at these parasites, they take over caterpillars. Just one example. And they take over the caterpillar's consciousness, make it climb to the top of the tallest tree, and then explode. And then all of the juice from the caterpillar goes everywhere. And then the other caterpillars come along and eat it. And then that's how the parasite spreads. They all go to the top of the trees, and then all the caterpillars explode. And what happens is these negative entities, they do the same thing to human beings. They infiltrate human beings' consciousness, and the human being becomes the host and gets the human being to be in a low vibrational state. Mm-hmm. What happens is off-planet beings and on-planet beings, they feed off of the human negative emotion. So what we do, a big part of Star Magic is helping people release these shadow parasites from their physical bodies, from their auric fields, on a multi-dimensional level. So yeah, it's a big part of what we do.
That's amazing.
I find it fascinating. Well, for one, you're the first person I've ever seen remotely. When you talk and when you tell your stories, your aura rotates through colors. It's fascinating, really. Has anyone ever told you that?
Well, I mean, within our
usually
fields, yeah. I mean, we've got a Merkaba field, and we've got like a Merkaba field. And that is always spinning. It should always be spinning at certain spin ratios. I mean, the bottom tetrahedron spins twice as fast as the top one. The female one's the fastest, the male one's the slowest. The top one's electromagnetic and the bottom one's magnetic. And they're plugged into different star systems, into the Earth's grids. And they should be spinning really fast. But a lot of
But
people,
most people's stays one or two colors, consistently for the most part when we're watching them. Yours is constantly changing.
There's this frequency that we work with called kaleidoscopic chromium, which is an Andromedan frequency. A friend of mine was meditating and journeying 4 or 5 years ago, and she ended up on a beach in Andromeda, and she got told about this kaleidoscopic chromium frequency, and it's like a chrome platinum color, but within it you've got so many color ranges, like the amount of oranges is just unbelievable. The amount of pinks, it's like from, I don't know, just so many color ranges of all the different colors and beyond. And we've been working with this for a couple of years now, and this is really what we're tuning people into, because this frequency, it's the most powerful frequency that we can access as human beings. And we all originally, the Milky Way galaxy was part of the Andromedan galaxy, M32. And what happened is we fell away from the Andromedan galaxy many, many years ago. And our Earth's twin planet, Ursa, is part of the Andromedan galaxy, and we're still linked Stargate-wise up to this planet. And what we need to do is to bring through these frequencies, and this is what we've been working on, and this is what we're tuning other people into. And this is how we're going to be able to raise our frequency, change our inner geometry, and actually escape this prison planet by going back through the Stargate network, back to Andromeda or wherever we decide to go to. But this whole time-based matrix is it's not just planet Earth, it's a prison system. The whole matrix is a prison system. And the only way we're going to get out of this is to activate our DNA and remember these skills and knowledge sets of how to kind of exit through the Stargate system, and back to Andromeda, wherever we go to. But kaleidoscopic chromium is a really integral part of this. And that's probably what you can see spinning through my field.
Huh.
Okay, well, we're going to have to say goodbye to Jerry. Thank you for staying up.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jerry.
Jerry.
So much
nice
good
talking
information.
to you, buddy.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
And where can someone get your information for your
If you
book?
go to starmagichealing.com, on there you're going to get access to everything.
Okay, well, thanks again for
Thank
tuning
you, Jerry.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you very much.
Take care.
in.
Lots of
Fascinating.
love. Take care,
Thank
yeah?
you.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Great. Very interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Very
Yeah, it was.
interesting. Yeah, a lot of information, a lot of stuff.
Has he written a novel?
He's written a book.
He should write a novel on his
Oh,
life.
he should. He should.
Yeah.
Jeez. Oh my
He
God.
should definitely write a book. A lot of information, interesting information about the healing and communicating with the other worlds out there. A lot of different planets out there to get some star healing. Reminds me of the Star Child. Sean, do you remember that? Star Seeds. I'll never forget to get that. Go down in history. Well, for our second hour is sponsored by Carnation. So thank you, Carnation, for sponsoring this hour. And we have our special guest on again, Marty Eddleton. You think I would get that right?
Eddington.
Eddington.
Hey, Marty.
Hi,
How are you?
guys.
Try.
Hello,
Good to see you, my friends. How are you,
Good.
my friends?
Hey, Marty.
Good to have you back. We're going to talk about something. I was always fascinated. There was a show with Patrick Duffy. I don't know if you remember it. The Man from Atlantis. I mean, this is
Yes.
going
Oh,
back
yeah.
a long time. I used to love that show. I loved it. And I was always fascinated with Atlantis. And I think it's the mystery of it is, phenomenal. And it gives me goosebumps when I think about it, because to think that there might have been a city under the sea. So, Marty, tell us about Atlantis and how you got started in that, and the history. And do you think, one of the biggest questions I have for you right now, do you think that they were extraterrestrial?
Ah, I don't know the answer to that. But let me give you some background. First of all, my website, mkeddingtonbooks.com, mkeddingtonbooks.com. And this is my book, The Real Atlantis in the Eye of the Sahara. about 4 years ago, I watched a video on YouTube that said it was at the Richat structure, which is in Western Africa. And I thought, gee, that's kind of interesting. So I started doing research on it, and I found out some really amazing things. So first, to go into some of the history, what we know about Atlantis is mainly from Plato, a Greek philosopher who lived from 428 to 328 BC. And he said that his grandfather told him about the story who he got from a man named Solon, who I think was a priest in Egypt. So the information that was in Greece that Plato heard about Atlantis was probably 100 years old. And what he said, he put in his book called Critias. And you can read Critias, and I've got it in the important passages in my book. But basically, Critias describes this ancient city, which was run by the god king Atlas, and it was a set of circles with water in between and a passage out to the ocean. And it was an advanced city for the age, and there's a lot of details about it, and I go into a lot of details in the book, but that it was destroyed about 9,000 years before Plato's time. So that would make it about over like 11,500 years ago. So this is a very ancient time, before we thought civilization existed, although we know differently now with discoveries in Eastern Turkey that there was civilization of some type that long ago. So there have been historical sites where people thought Atlantis was located over the years. So I thought I'd go through some of those first before I get into the Richat structure. One of the most popular is Thera, which is now known as Santorini, because the island of Thera had a volcanic explosion in about 1646 BC that destroyed the island, which had a civilization on the shores of it at that time, and created tidal waves in the Aegean and created tidal waves all over the Mediterranean down to Egypt. So it caused a major problem, and there's some similarities to Atlantis, but it's not far enough back in time, and it's not outside the Pillars of Hercules, which is the Straits of Gibraltar. So there's kind of question marks about whether that was a site. There's been a lot of other sites suggested, such as off the Azores, which are out in the Atlantic Ocean, off Cuba. Back in the early 2000s, some people doing surveying work said they found an ancient civilization thousands of feet down in the water off Cuba. I even read a book like 15 years ago that said the Altiplano near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia was the original site of Atlantis, and they gave their reasoning. One of the most popular areas right now is called Doggerland. Have you ever heard of Doggerland? It's the area between Britain and Europe that was exposed during the Ice Age. And there's actually evidence of human habitation there. They bring things up all the time when they're fishing. So a lot of people think it might be Doggerland. But I'm pretty sure, I mean, you can be sure unless you do more research, that it was none of those places. Because not only Plato, but there was actually a second source that said that Atlantis was in West Africa. Believe it or not, most people don't know this. But there was a famous historian called Herodotus, also Greek, who lived from 484 to 425 BC. So he died before Plato was born. And he described the world as he knew it, and all around the world. He did not make any maps, but people have made maps from his descriptions, put Atlantis in Western Africa, south of the Atlas Mountains. And so it's the same location that Plato says it was at. And so it's really interesting. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that when this site would be populated, it was like 9,500 BC. And back then, Northern Africa was not a desert. It was green. And there were many rivers. So it was a different climate. And it makes sense that there could have been a city because there were rivers in the area. So if you look at that, that's another possibility of how something could have been there.
Where did it disappear to? If it sank, where would it have sunk to, I guess?
Well, my theory is it didn't sink. It dried up. And there was some type of disaster, maybe a tsunami from the ocean, that washed over the channels. And it was lost because nobody could get there, and nobody really recognized this structure until I think it was the Gemini astronauts in the 1960s overflew it and took pictures. Nobody really knew much about it. So it's different than some of the other theories about Atlantis actually sinking into the ocean. So it's a really interesting location. The dimensions of it with the rings match the descriptions in Plato's Critias. And one of the things that was said is that there was a central island where there were elephants. And of course, there may have well been elephants in that area of Africa at that time. Another thing they said about the central island was that there was the temple of Poseidon there, which was a huge temple. And people who've traveled there say, oh, there's no ruins in there. But I looked at Google Earth when I was researching this. I looked in the central area and I looked in other areas, and I found actually outlines of walls, and I took snapshots, outlines of walls in the central island of the Richat structure, which could have well been temple remains or other major building remains. So,
yeah, did you hear of anything about the healing crystals that they said that Atlantis had? That some people go and they went into sort of what Sean does. He what do you call that? Prospect. They prospected for crystals, and they said that these crystals had healing properties. Did you ever hear anything like that?
I really don't
Any
know
truth
much
to
about
that?
that.
No?
I'm mainly focused on the ancient history and the ruins and all that type of thing. But it was obviously an advanced civilization. According to who you read, the civilization controlled by Atlantis reached all the way to Egypt and even parts of the Mediterranean. So it was a major civilization, if not the major civilization.
Is it in history books about this? I mean, I never.
Well, the only history books are based on Critias, which is written by Plato about Atlantis. There's no real history books that any professional archaeologist would accept.
Is it just a myth, or is it a legend? Is there really evidence that there was a city or a place called Atlantis?
I think the best evidence is that there's some cultures around the world who have similarities to it. Like in Central America, there are cultures that said they came from a land that's no longer there, and they've had some similar words. And there's been an interesting wreck was found in the Mediterranean some years ago, where they found this strange metal, which was a combination of several things. I think it was tin, iron, and other metals that was red, that was similar to the orichalcum that was said to be an Atlantean metal. And this is a metal that was not used anywhere else in the ancient world. Again, this was before most people would accept that civilization existed. Although we know that there was civilization in the temples built in eastern Turkey at that time, Göbekli Tepe and more. So there were people who were building structures at that time. But so that's kind of an overview of what we know about Atlantis. We don't know how it was destroyed exactly. But one of the interesting things when you look at pictures of the area, and I have some in my book, is you can see it looks like there was something that swept through the area, some type of wave or some type of water swept through the area. In fact, people who've been in this area say they found ancient bones, and I'm talking bones, not fossils, of whales and other large mammals in the sand. So it was obviously underwater, or parts of it were underwater at one time. The area in question is about 400 feet above sea level, but considering the age, the land could have risen, or also with the possible rivers that led to it, there may have been inlets that went into that area and led to that structure, or that thing that's being a city back then. So that's kind of an overview of the Atlantis in the eye of the Sahara. I still think it's the best candidate for it. And I know it doesn't lend itself a lot to the paranormal, except the legends that come down for it. One of the things is the leader of it was supposed to be the King Atlas, who had 10 sons. And Atlas, as we know from Greek mythology, was one of the Titans. And his sons were probably Titans too. So maybe these were the predecessors to the Greeks. kept that up. So that's kind of the main stuff about Atlantis. I don't know if you have any questions about it.
So I got a question actually. There was a theory that the people of Atlantis are kind of like reincarnating as Middle Easterners today. Like, do you believe any of that theory, or is that just
Well, I think that we are all reincarnations of earlier instances, earlier lives. So I think that's very possible. And that was, of course, a major civilization in ancient history. And if you've read any of my ancient history books, I've actually written some that I think there was a major civilization that collapsed about 10,500 BC due to a comet hitting the Earth.
Oh.
And that was called the Younger Dryas. I don't know if you've ever heard the Younger Dryas, but it's a major change in the climate of Earth when a lot of animals died, and it changed the climate all over the world. It may have even been the source of the legend of the flood. So I think there's a lot of things we don't know about ancient history. I mean, if you look at it, actually, the glaciers melting covered the land, covered a lot of cities that used to exist. Like off of Western India is a city called Dwarka, which is underwater by like 100 feet, which was above land thousands of years ago. It was above the surface thousands of years ago. All the time now, archaeologists are finding cities and towns on what used to be the old coasts, which are now sunk. So there's obviously major civilizations that were destroyed during the melting of the glaciers. And I'm getting a little off your question, but yeah, I think there were reincarnations of people, and they could well be in the Middle East, but probably also around the world, because I think we all have had previous lives. In fact, I don't know if I ever talked about this, but I remember choosing my parents and the womb and being born and all that. So I even wrote about it in one of my books, and I covered some reincarnation stories then. So I think we all have a consciousness that goes from kind of the outer realm or astral realm or whatever that lets us come back to our human bodies for reasons that we need to be here.
So Marty, maybe I missed your answer on this, but what got you interested in Atlantis?
Well, that's a good question. I'm always interested in mysteries, as you know. I mean, I started with writing books on longevity and immortality, and then about the paranormal. And when I saw this video on YouTube, I thought, gee, that's really interesting. I've never heard this before. And I just started researching it. I wanted to write. I like to write on things that really key me, that really get me interested. That's how I get my interest in my books, because I'm fascinated by the topics I write about, and I want to know more about them. So this got me interested. And that was my first ancient history book. And I've written about 9 or 10 since then on subjects like ancient ruins, underground civilizations.
What about Pompeii?
Well, that's the city of Dwarka, which some people think is one of the ancient cities that was talked about in different legends. In fact, maybe the city where one of the ancient characters in Indian mythology lived. I'm trying to think of his name, who was blue, and he was a major figure in ancient Indian history. But these legends, I can't remember his name.
I can't remember him. I know who you're talking about, but I just can't remember him.
Yeah. I've also written several books, since they're talking about history, about out-of-place artifacts. Are you familiar with out-of-place artifacts?
Out-of-place ones? No. What about you guys?
No.
That's so fascinating. In fact, I just finished an encyclopedia about them after writing.
You finished an encyclopedia?
Well, I call it an encyclopedia. I thought that was a good name for it. And basically, out-of-place artifacts are intelligently made artifacts which are found, but they're impossible for the times they're found in. Many of them are millions of years old.
Time traveling artifacts, you mean?
Maybe, but also maybe there were beings that lived there, and that's where we get to aliens. Maybe they were alien beings.
Look at the Sumerians.
In fact, I found one book I wrote because I found about 10 different artifacts that were all found in strata of coal or limestone that were about 200 million years old. 200 million years old. Now, as you know, humanity has not existed any further back. Our ancestors, our predecessors, only were a couple million years ago. And humanity, as we know it, Homo sapiens, only like 200,000 years ago. So 200 million years is impossible, except these are intelligently made artifacts. Like one example is there was a coal mine in Poland where they found a wheel in the coal mine, embedded in the coal. You can see the outline of the wheel, you can see the spokes, you can see the center of it. It's an actual wheel. Others are bowls. There have been bowls found in coal, and there's certifications of the people who found them that it was from a real coal vein, a piece of coal. Again, the coal was 200 million years old. There's all sorts of things that have been found. So as more of these objects are found, the more incredible it gets. In fact, the reason I decided to write the book was there was a mask found that looks like a mask, a death mask of a human that was also from coal, but it's got very bloated features, either because the body was sick or because that's the way the beings looked back then.
Death mask.
And going further down this idea of out of place artifact, there's lots of footprints in rock. I don't know if you've ever seen any pictures of footprints in rock, human footprints in rock that are millions of years ago, to that age or older. Even some of them coinciding with dinosaur footprints, or one set of footprints that has trilobites in the footprint. Of course, trilobites haven't existed for hundreds of millions of years. So that's kind of another section in the same book. And it's just, we found there's all sorts of things. I wish I could show you some pictures. Things like spark plugs found in rock, or a hammer found in rock with the head and a wooden handle, which is now petrified, which was hundreds
I've
of
seen
years
that.
old. There's just an amazing wealth of these objects, and more are found all the time. And so I don't think that they are wrong, and I don't think, like a creationist, that God created the world in a different way. I just think they are real, that they exist, that they go back to many millions of years old, some of them, and there had to be beings then that created them. And because man didn't exist, it was probably aliens that came down, and they either lived here or they created man that lived here. And so out of place artifacts is a really interesting topic. Those are actually some of my best-selling books because people are really fascinated by all these objects.
I was reading something about, I was talking about extraterrestrials could have inhabited Atlantis, and then they actually destroyed it, and that's when the humans moved to other parts of the world. Is that a possibility?
Could be. We don't know. We don't know who the Titans were. Maybe the Titans were aliens or alien derived. Some theorists, like the guy who wrote a lot of books decades ago, I'm trying to remember his name. I'm short on names tonight. He wrote that aliens created humanity to do work on Earth for them. Zecharia Sitchin. Have you heard of Zecharia Sitchin? He wrote a series of books. And so his theory was the aliens created humanity. So that's another interesting possibility. Now, one of the books I covered in my ancient series was about giants. There's a lot of history of giants on the earth, both in recorded history and even up until ancient times, until current times, rather. And in ancient times, giants, because some of the giant footprints are many times larger than any human footprint can be. There are records in the Bible of like King Og, who had a bed that was 12 feet long. There was supposedly a giant, believe it or not, that our soldiers found in Afghanistan. This is a story that's been going around for a number of years. According to this story, these soldiers, and they were special forces, were in the mountains of Afghanistan, and the local people had told them there was a giant who was eating them. So they went up into the mountains there to find out, and they found a cave, and this giant came out and speared one of the soldiers and killed him. So they, of course, shot the giant and took quite a few bullets, but they shot him. And then it was recorded that the giant was taken to an air base and covered up and flown out on a transport. Nobody knows where. probably in that warehouse of all the boxes from Indiana Jones. But it's a modern story about giants.
There's also the stories in Afghanistan with special forces soldiers about fighting almost werewolf type giant, half man, half wolf, super soldier type thing. And it's there's so many anonymous special forces soldier accounts of this. Have you heard of those from Afghanistan, from the hills of Afghanistan?
I wonder if it's about the same story.
That's what I was wondering.
These wouldn't surprise me because there's a lot of beings in hidden areas of the world that nobody believes or wants to talk about. Yeah. But when modern society runs into them, they are found, and sometimes it gets very dangerous.
And these specific ones were thought to have been like almost contracted with the Afghanistan forces to be working for them, or I don't think for them, I think with them, which I can kind of see, because if something's, to them, it's something's invading their country also. So maybe,
yeah, I mean maybe they were Sasquatches, like,
right.
I decided, I've got a whole set of books about legendary beings. And one of the books I wrote was about Sasquatches. And I'd never read a book about Sasquatches, and I hadn't watched much about them, but I thought, okay, this is something that needs to be investigated. And I couldn't believe it, but I found there were records of, in North America, thousands of sightings of Sasquatches all around the U.S. and Canada. And so you begin to wonder, and a lot of the stories I read were individual stories of actually meeting them. So I started to wonder, could these Sasquatches, how could they live? How could they hide and people don't find them? And there were a couple of evidences of Sasquatch huts or something, but most of them, nothing. But they really seem to exist. Even recordings of, or not recording, but stories of Sasquatch family with a Sasquatch man, a Sasquatch woman, and little Sasquatch kids. So that's when I started to wonder, and I'm kind of shifting topics here.
How they're from there's so many caves underground, especially in the East Coast. Believe it or not, there's caves that's probably where they go into the. I was just having a conversation with somebody today about that. That they're sightings, but they just disappeared, and we were thinking they were going into portals when they're going, I believe, in these caves underground.
Well, it could be both. Portals, I think, is a definite possibility, because when I researched dimensional shifts, there seem to be people who really undergo dimensional shifts. I think, Trish, we talked about this a little bit before. And so maybe the Sasquatches have an ability to do dimensional shifts.
I think so.
One of the things I just recently discovered, because, I write about so many different things, but remember I talked about the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is this ancient Sanskrit text, and the book 3 talks about paranormal abilities. Well, one of the sutras, when I was reading through it recently, talks about the ability to distinguish two realities. And I thought, oh my God, maybe this is a sutra really talking about an ability that people can develop to shift dimensions. Because I think dimensional shifts would explain a lot of things. It would explain about how elves can disappear into the other world. It would just explain about where Sasquatches go. It would explain about some of these strange animals like thunderbirds or dragons, and where they can go if they have dimensional shifting abilities. So I think more that's real.
But I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Mirrors, even with like vampires and stuff, not being able to see their reflection. I think that's a dimensional thing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the world we live in is much stranger than most of us would think. And even though I'm an engineer, I realize, as becoming an engineer and learning relativistic physics and things like that, that the amount of things we don't know is much more than what we do know. Mm-hmm. All I learned was that the world is much more mysterious than any scientists or engineers are willing to admit. So I think dimensional shifts definitely occur. Now, I've gotten way off the subject of Atlantis. Yeah. We're kind of drifting around here. Why, Sean, did you have a question?
Yes, he does.
I do. I do. I had it in my brain, but I just lost it. So I
Well,
don't know.
Maybe it went to another
The
dimension.
only Atlantis that I know of is when I watch it on TV and I see that they go underwater all the time in a certain spot, and they see like roads, they see pillars, they see everything.
Right.
So when I listen to you, and I'm nothing against you, Marty, I think you're cool, but to me, I can't see them being in every other different spot out there. I just see Atlantis being in the ocean, and and then you talk
There have been a
about
lot of ruins found in the ocean. For instance, Edgar Casey once predicted that ruins would be found off Bermuda. And in 1968, I think it's the island of Bimini in Bermuda, a road of large stones was found, and nobody's been able to provide an explanation of how that could have been created within known history. So
could it have been Atlantis then?
Maybe, or a road to the prior civilization had, or maybe it was a jetty for a place to dock ships back then. But there seemed to be a lot of civilizations sunken beneath the ocean, which were above water from when we had the last ice age. I mean, you're talking about a 300 plus difference in the level of the ocean from the height of the ice age until now. We're still in the melt era of the ice age. In fact, we'll go off on one other interesting fact, which is unrelated but talks about related to the ice age. There's a set of pillars that have been found in Montana called the Montana megaliths. And I've done a little research on them. I guess you've read about it, Trish. And one of the things I was wondering is, why would something be there? Well, it turns out that location is also where a gap was in the glaciers that went up through there to Alaska. So if somebody came over the land bridge at the time from Asia down through Canada, they would have run into these pillars as kind of a welcoming site for humanity coming onto North America.
It's kind of like Western Kansas. They found, I believe it was a year or two ago, one of the largest prehistoric shark fossils in Western Kansas. And everybody always thinks, well, obviously we were once in the middle of the ocean. So I was going to say, I don't know if you've ever heard, going back, my pagan roots, and this does kind of have to do with Atlantis, the Tuatha Danann, in the belief of as above, so below, everything mirrors everything else. Everything has duality. So, for instance, the fish carry everything in the ocean all around the world, just as the birds can carry everything in the sky. And that's where you get, the fish people and the sky people. And then obviously you have the other elements of the land people, etc. So I 100%, I think of Atlantis as being the water element people as far as that goes. If when you try to simply classify.
Beings live in the ocean?
Correct.
Well, that's interesting because I've recently seen a bunch of videos about pictures of these, I don't know what to call them, beings who seem to be, they're mermaids. They seem to be real, live, intelligent beings that came from the ocean. And some of them don't look fake at all.
Right.
They look like they're real.
And Hollywood hasn't helped. Of course, they're not going to look like a person, obviously.
They look like a fish.
Yeah, the one I saw that really impressed me, was it found in Australia, I think? And it had a face that looked like a human face, but it had ears and gills, and it had very long webbing and hair that looked almost like seaweed, and it had a very, very long tail. And makes me wonder if there are ancient civilizations, people that live below the sea that we don't know about. Because remember, 7/10 of the world is ocean.
See, I always thought the man from Atlantis was part fish.
But it goes the
Nymphs,
other way as
mermaids.
well, you know, and this goes
Yeah,
back to native
that's a-
cultures also, to the people of the sky beings. Well, those have been called angels,
Mhm.
Mothman, Thunderbirds, all kinds of things throughout time. Um, what's the like the phoenix, things like that, through depending on what part of the world mythology you're following. But what if that's also another race of intelligent beings, you know, just because they don't look like humans? We're so, you know, we think that everything has to fit this in this box, and I absolutely don't think it does, because what if that's just another form of civilization, you know, in the sky or in
Yes,
another.
I agree. The more I learn, the more I realize how much we don't know, that there are beings, there are animals or cryptozoological animals, there are all sorts of life forces which live around us, among us, and we never perceive them, or if we do once in a while, we don't believe it. There's just so much mystery. And I guess it's because people form their notions about what is real and what isn't,
Hmm.
and they don't want to think outside that box, or if they see something, they'll think it's, you know, they were drunk, or they ignore it. But yet those things really exist. Things really exist which we don't know about.
Well,
And
even in our own lives, if you live in like an apartment complex, how many people know all of their neighbors above them and all of them below them? How do
Mhm.
you know? There could be an alien living below you, you know, in the basement apartment. There could be who knows living above you. Nobody ever really. We don't even know it's in our own backyard, for
It's
that matter.
interesting you say that, because the research I've done on aliens and UFOs says that there's probably 15 to 20 alien species who've been on this earth that we know about. And one of them was written about by a Air Force weatherman out in Nevada, who met this race of people that lived out there, and they were called the Tall Whites. And they liked to go into Las Vegas. One of them liked to go to the old Stardust because they liked seeing the planets and things hung there. So I don't know. But we
Yeah.
may have a lot of secret visitors on this planet. In fact, I
Oh,
happen
yeah,
to think
I think so.
aliens have been here for millions of years, that they're the reason for a lot of these out of place objects. They may have been involved in starting the city of Atlantis or leading it. They are involved today. And I think we also have a lot of secret alien technology that we have made use of. So, yeah, things are just so strange. We don't know all of the things. All we can do is, you know, I like patterns. I like to look at patterns about information. The more patterns I find, those give me evidence to propose different theories. And that's why I'm really into patterns instead of just rejecting things out of hand, which a lot of people do. And I get some of my best books and best stories from looking at patterns, like the idea of a civilization existing 200 million years ago. So, yeah, there's a lot of weird things out there, and you guys are just exploring the surface of it. And
This is pretty interesting. It really is, Martin. But we're running out of time here a little bit. Because we
okay,
like to discuss like on different topics what's going on with us now, and we would like to have you back on so we can continue this talk about Atlantis.
sure, I have more topics, and let me just give my website again. It's mkedingtonbooks.com, mkettingtonbooks.com. And I love being on here with you guys. You're all so experienced and knowledgeable, and it's a lot of fun. So thank you for having me.
Marty, thank you for
Thank you,
being
Marty.
on.
Thank you, and you have a nice evening.
Okay, take care.
All right, we'll see you.
Pretty interesting.
Yes, it is very interesting.
To me, Atlantis is underwater in a certain
Yeah,
spot.
I kind of think the same thing as you do. I mean,
I feel like it should just remain a mystery, and we should, take all that time and energy to maybe focus other parts that haven't been, to explore other parts of the oceans or whatever that we don't know anything about.
no,
Which
it's
You know,
true.
is a good. What I'd like to know. I mean, sure they put as subs or something that go down to the Mariana Trench. I'd like to what's really down there. I'd like to know what besides
It
seeing
goes
these.
so
the
deep.
megalodon.
It
Yeah,
goes very
creepy.
deep. Another topic I was watching on Tucker. I don't know if you guys watch Tucker, But they had, this is something up your alley, Sean. They had butchers. Okay, butchers on Tucker. It was on Fox Nation, and he was interviewing them, and he was asking them about the mutilations of the cattle
Hmm.
that a lot of UFOs gurus believe that this is something that some kind of a creature from outer space is mutilating these cattle in such a way that the butcher said that you just can't, like, the average Joe wouldn't know how to take these parts of the organs
Right.
precise the way they cut them. And it was really interesting because they were talking about, because they had a group of butchers on, and I said, there's no way for, like, somebody had to know what they were doing.
Exactly. Oh
So,
yeah, absolutely.
like, what?
Because whenever you break down a cow, there are certain ways that you have to do it. Okay,
Mhm.
and that was taught to me. And
Yeah, it was just interesting.
it
How long have you
it
been a
is.
butcher, Sean?
What's that?
How long have you been a butcher?
22 years.
It's a long time. But you bet
Yeah.
you could write a
Do you
horror
prefer
story.
cows, pigs, turkeys? What do you like to butcher the best?
Pigs.
Cow and pigs. Chickens, I don't want to deal with chickens, man, because their blood is so thin, and then when you open up a chicken package, you get all the juices that come from the chicken. It's gross. It really is gross. So I stay away from chickens and turkeys as much as I can, but mainly pigs and cows.
Oh yeah, bacon and beef, can't beat it.
Well, what do you guys think? What do you think these? Because they were talking about. I guess there was another ranch. I'm not sure exactly where it was. That there's a lot of sightings of these cattle.
Yeah,
that
don't they
being
take their heart out or something?
Well,
Their
why?
liver?
Who? Why? What? Where? When? How?
We
Like,
don't know.
what? Why
Nobody
are they
knows.
doing it? I mean, is it somebody on Earth?
No, because I watched this. No, she's got no. It's nobody on earth because you have to be a very very skilled person to go in. First of all, you got to wrestle that 2,000-pound cow down to the ground, and then go in and take its heart or whatever they take. So
Skinwalker
Did you ever
Ranch,
do that?
someone said.
Holly's right. Skinwalker Ranch.
I
Did you
don't
ever
know.
wrestle a cow,
On
Pat?
Joe's show, he talks about how the the government was doing it to do radiation research, and they absolutely have those tools.
So the government's doing it.
Because then a lot of these bigger farmers would turn that in as an insurance claim. So it's not like,
They're
So
all
they're
in cahoots with
they're
each other.
so when the ranch has a missing cow and they find it some other pasture and it's been mutilated, they can turn it into the insurance
Yeah.
company.
Yeah,
Oh God. Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh hell yeah.
So it was on one of Joe's UFO.
Why wouldn't they just go buy their own cows and put them in a farm and use them
Because
out?
they can't. It's specific areas, specific locations. They test the radiation levels in those areas, and they take the organs from the cow and their blood for that purpose.
That's just psychotic.
I know.
So they're just seeing how radiation affects the human body.
Well, cattle, but we eat the cattle, so indirectly,
Yeah.
yes.
Not so much the cattle. I would say the closest thing to a human body would be a pig.
Yeah, they say their skin's as close to ours as
Really?
Yeah.
Except we don't. Well, yeah, because cattle have what, 5 stomachs?
Yeah, they do.
Pigs
have
don't
5
have the
stomachs.
same filtration system. So
No, they got. I think it's 4 stomachs they got. I think it's 4. I've been watching Dr. Pol on TV.
Pap, imagine how much food you could eat if you had 4 stomachs.
Oh man, what's that called? It's called tripe. That is the nastiest thing.
Ew, my father used to love tripe.
Oh my God, was that
It
gross?
smells so bad when it's cooking.
Oh,
It's nasty.
that was.
Now,
gross.
what is tripe? That's stomach of a cow?
That's the stomach of the cow.
Like, why would
yes.
you want to eat that?
I don't know, but you know what? A lot of Italian people do eat it. They do there's recipes that they do with it.
My dad
Now
blooded.
liver. Who likes liver on here?
I
Anybody?
love liver.
Don't
Liver,
like-
bacon. Yum, and onions. Well, I don't
Liver-
like onions anymore, guys.
Why?
because ever since I had COVID,
They
when
bring
I
a
got
tear to your eye.
my smell back, it's not normal. It smell onions and garlic. Onions are the worst. It
Oh,
smells rank. I cannot be in the same room with somebody who added onions. I can't eat the onions. Everything tastes like I can't stand the smell of it. And the only thing I've been able to eat now, I made sauce this week. I couldn't eat it.
huh.
What kind of
I said
sauce?
there must have been tomato sauce. There must have been some kind of onions when they stewed these tomatoes. And my mother had chili tonight, and I had tasted it. It was like, oh my god, the smell makes me nauseated. So
Don't tell your mother
basically,
that.
I'm not eating anything except
Have you ever
overnight
tried?
oats. Overnight
Have
oats.
you ever?
Eggs make me want to gag.
How about dehydrated onions? They don't have a smell to them, but they got, you
No,
know.
there's something. It's actually a phenomenon. They're calling it. I think they're calling it persomnia or something. Persomnia.
Huh.
I'm
I
pretty
never
sure that's
heard.
what it is. And a lot of people who had COVID now, their smell is not. There's a lot of them, especially the onions. It smells disgusting and it tastes disgusting. Eggs make me want to throw up.
Oh my God.
So basically, I'm down to protein bars, protein powder, overnight oats I can eat without gagging. And this is funny. Over Easter, I had to go hide all the Easter candy. I gave it away. Chocolate, that's the only thing I like. The only thing that
Wow.
tastes good is chocolate. I said, what am
Oh
I going
God.
to do? Everything
That's the
tastes like
key
crap.
ingredients for a healthy diet.
It's disgusting. But
I mean,
there's
if
a
they,
cure for it.
oh my
Hmm?
God, if I need my eggs. I need my
Oh, they
eggs.
smell like it's all I usually eat is eggs. And they stink.
Oh my God.
Gag.
Wait.
Oh man, that'd be terrible.
It is. I don't know. They said you can take some was it smell like kits you can buy like I tried it cinnamon, lemons. What was the other one? Eucalyptus. And there's
Yeah.
one more, ginger, and you're supposed to smell it. But I mean, it's disgusting. Because if especially food is everything, and if it tastes like shit, you don't want to eat it. Well, you can lose weight, I guess, but the smell, oh,
So, Trish, what's your uh, thoughts on this?
On food and smell.
no! Did you
Yeah.
ever hear the phenomenon about the
I
people who
think
had that?
um, a lot of people I know lost their scent, and the smell is associated with it brings nostalgia, but technically we don't, as humans, we don't actually need, well, we don't even need to eat. That was a
Yeah, that's
construct
true.
made up at the beginning of time. And smells equally wouldn't exist. But since I live by essential oils a lot, I'm the same way. And if I couldn't smell those, they because they do a lot of different things for your health, as far as
Mhm.
your mood or, relaxing or boosting your energy, things like that. So I know I have a friend that does henna, and she said when she got COVID, she lost. That's one of her the favorite things that she loves is making the henna paste because
It
is the
makes her
smell of
gag,
it.
probably.
So she couldn't smell it for a very long time, and she just recently, a few months ago, got her smell back to be able to smell that again. And so it did change her mood while she was
Yeah.
doing it because she couldn't smell it.
Well, you sound like you have a cold. Are you having
Oh, I've
allergies?
been no,
Are you sick?
Rona.
I have.
You have
Uh,
COVID?
Do you have COVID?
no, I don't have COVID. I did this whole journalist thing, and there was a forest fire last weekend,
And
and
that bothered you. There was something, yeah, all this
yeah,
must have been something in it. That's terrible. I
Wow.
hope you get better. You
So
sound
any
bad.
tornadoes out there, Trish?
I hope not. It's the weather's actually been really nice. This well, the last few days I haven't really been out in it, but
Oh, that's a
The
shame.
weather here the weather here in Pittsburgh, it sucks because we had 2
Yeah.
nice days in the 80s,
Hey, at
and
least
now
it was
it's
the weekend. At least it was
Yeah, that's
finally
true.
the weekend was nice weather.
It was
yeah,
beautiful.
and it's 47 right now. No, I'm
I had to
sorry,
cover my
45.
fig tree because I didn't want to get frost on it.
So, what do y'all think about the weather, real quick? Do you think it's like forced by government?
I
Because
think
I see this pattern. If you look at it, it's like nice for 2 or 3 days,
they
and
want you to
then
stay inside and be miserable.
It's
I,
It
I
affects
don't
gross
our
know.
spraying
immune
Pat.
system. It also affects plant cycles
And it
Mhm.
and
affects your
animals.
moods.
It
And
affects
it
everything. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
because I say like it's cold on Thursday and Friday. No, I'm sorry, it's warm on Thursday and Friday, and then from Saturday all the way to Wednesday, you're freezing. You know what I mean? And it's
Oh yeah.
Cure,
Yeah, but that,
is
that
there
all
a
has to
cure
do with
for
the jet
tendon?
stream and all that crap. Ask
Uh,
any meteorologist
I know there's a cure for tendonitis. Is that for when you're ringing
for
in your ear?
today.
I
Ring
have
in
it
here.
too a lot. You go like this. I mean, you pull your ear up, pull it up, pull it up, pull it up. Do it like 5 times on each side, and it'll get rid of that ringing in the ear. And I can't stand it because I've been having it a lot, and I think they're programming us.
Well, that's also goes back to the sonic waves we were talking
Yeah, I'm
about.
thinking it's too in our 5G. I think it has something to do with your sleep. Keep your
Yes.
phones away from you. Should get one of them. What are they called? Oh, you put your phone in it. It's supposed to get rid of EMS. Oh, who the heck does it? Oh,
Fair.
Farad case. They do work, and you can get it. You can get. I
Yeah.
have a
Well,
couple.
tonight
it's
is inflammation. So what all of these things are doing between the weather and the sonic
It's
waves and all of
fucking.
that 5G is causing inflammation. So
And I have a lot of that lately. Terrible.
just getting close to say goodnight, Gracie, here soon.
Yes, it is. Maybe we should head out early tonight.
Yeah, I don't know. It's up to you all. I'm good. I come on. Have my show coming up, and I don't know what I'm
So
going
I
to
just
talk
have to
about.
take a second, and I really enjoy that sheet behind you, Sean.
You like it? No,
It looks really
Oh,
nice.
no, I've
honey.
been had it for the last month, dude. I mean,
Yeah,
You
no.
have a green streak.
yes, I have
It's
And you
I do
can't put
have
it
a
up.
green.
Doesn't it work?
Your blanket is literally green. You could probably use it as a green screen.
Yeah, well, I tried. I don't know. I'll get to it. You know, it was a rough month. It was a rough
Yeah,
month.
it is a rough month for a lot of people. Well,
Yeah.
my daughter-in-law is due to have her baby, and she didn't have it yet. So I thought I'd be a grandma by now.
Oh, Grammy,
Yeah,
Gemma,
Gemma.
Gemma.
Yeah, I'm hoping
That
soon as I
baby's
can
going to
hold
be
a
so
baby.
spoiled.
Oh my God, I already got stuff. I got baby doll. Well, for my other daughter-in-law, I got baby doll, and I got tracks and dinosaurs.
No, you got to get the Pampers, huh?
We have to. Yes, we do. We have to ask Mr. Protector something before we call it a night.
Okay.
Okay, everyone, I wanted your question because I've been using some psychic ability now, and I'm communicating with it. Go ahead.
Okay,
So
I'm
go
first. Is Jen going to be a
Oh,
grandma?
ask something for you. Ask something
Oh,
for
for
you.
me. Am I going to hit the lottery?
You, Rob.
But
I was
you
just gonna
can't
say
hit
that.
the lottery. You have to be precise, though.
Yeah.
If
Am I going
you
to
can
hit
hit
for
for $2,
Can I hit? Am I going to be hitting $100,000 in the lottery?
Sean gonna hit $100,000.
I am confident it is no.
Okay,
That's good.
we're going around the square. Okay, let's go. We'll go this way. So it's Jason. What is your question?
Am I gonna hit $100,000?
Is Jason going to hit $100,000? Okay.
The answer is no.
Hey, I'm telling you, this thing
Oh,
works.
jeez.
I'm telling you. Okay, Trish, what is your question?
No, I want to hit the million. I think it's like 400 million right now.
You're asking Mr. Predictor if you're going to hit for 100 million.
400
400. She's
400
very precise.
million. Yes.
Watch this say.
The signs say no.
Oh, that's spooky.
That's a shame.
Okay. I'm going to ask it more something not money related, but it sort of is. Mr. Predictor, I have a script out. Is somebody going to option it?
Definitely not.
Your flea market 8-ball just crapped on all of us.
Wait a minute. This is getting weird. Okay, Mr. Predictor, you're playing with us. Okay.
Mr.
Yeah.
Predictor, are you messing with us?
Wait. Mr. Predictor, are you messing with us?
Yes.
Oh, I want to know something else. Come on, Mr. Predictor. Mr. Predictor. Come on. Seriously, I'm not going to sell any scripts. Come on. Give me a break. Can I sell one?
It is best not to say now.
You jerk.
Oh.
Oh, come on.
Maybe- maybe
We
next week.
want to end on a happy note. Come
You
on.
need to put Mr. Predictor away.
Come on. Come on. Somebody else ask it a question. One more before we leave, because this seems like he's playing games.
Is my son moving to Columbus?
Is Sean's son moving to Columbus?
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Is he really?
Right. Yeah,
Oh
he
God,
is really.
I'm going to put you away for now because you're kind of spooking me out now.
What if it starts going off in the middle of the night?
Oh
Yeah.
God, I should ask the other ball then. I have another ball over there, but we have 1 minute.
Have them
Let's
ask.
the other ball.
Have them
Let me
talk to
get
each
the other
other.
ball. Let me get the other ball.
Oh my!
You
This
got
one's
two of them.
heavier. This one's heavier. It's harder to see. This doesn't do that. I got to ask it a question, guys. One more.
Is that the yard sale 8-ball?
Yeah, this is the other one. Go ahead. Somebody ask
Okay.
it.
Is my son going to Columbus again?
Is Sean's son going to Columbus? So it shall be.
No.
Okay, we're gonna have to get the magic 8-ball. Okay, I'm gonna get another one. I'm gonna get a magic 8-ball. Okay, all
No.
right. I'm so. Jesus
Well,
Christ.
was
I'm
that a
gonna say my-
ghost?
I'm gonna say my prayers
You get
tonight.
ghosts in there.
She got a ghost.
I think there's one in Mr. Protector.
I hope it goes off in the middle of the night.
No, don't scare me, Jason.
Oh man, we'll be getting
Ask
a
it
phone
to-
wait a
call.
minute.
Wait, bring it back.
No.
Ask
no.
Mr. Predictor if
No.
there's a ghost in your house.
No, I'm not gonna ask him. What if he
Ask
says
it.
yes?
Come on.
Come on,
You
Jen.
really want
ask-
me to
Let's find
ask
out.
him?
Yeah, ask
I'm
it.
scared.
It'll be fun. Ask it if there's a ghost in your house.
Mr. Predictor, is there a ghost in my house?
Highly doubtful.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Or,
Mwah,
that's
mwah,
a good
mwah.
note.
Thank you. I love you too. Okay, tomorrow, next week's guest is. We're going into May, guys. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. We don't have a guest.
No, don't worry, we'll find someone.
Yeah, we'll find some. I can't believe that. We are almost. Oh my God, almost coming up to our 3-year anniversary.
Yeah, I know.
Holy moly.
Yeah,
Scary, huh?
June 4th.
Okie dokie pokies. Off we go into the wild beyond.
Thanks for
I
listening
need
to
to
Torture
go to
Tuesday.
bed. What?
Thank you
Thanks
for listening to Torture Tuesday.
Yes, thank you for listening, ladies
And
and
don't
gentlemen.
forget, my show comes on right after this.
That's
Yes,
right.
and
They had
don't
enough.
forget to watch Sean's show, Into the Night, and The Missing Piece on Mondays with Trish Mo.
Yes, absolutely.
Okie dokie
Yes.
pokies.
Thank you all for listening.
Operators are standing by.
Welcome to Chasing Prophecy Radio, where we discuss the unidentified, the unexplainable, paranormal, conspiracies,